Good morning and welcome back to the Closers Inner Circle podcast. I'm Denise Griffitts, and today, with my co host, the legendary Ben Gay III, we're opening the door to something truly exceptional. This week, we're diving back into the Closers Part 2, and specifically into a piece that Ben has called his best sales work he has ever written. Let that sink in for a moment. After decades of experience, countless deals, and a lifetime immersed in the art and science of selling, this one piece stands above the rest after all these years. So, what exactly is sales infiltration, and how does it separate the master closers from everyone else? Now, this isn't surface level sales advice. This is about positioning, influence, and entering the mind of your prospect in a way that feels natural, seamless, and incredibly effective. Write that down. It feels natural, seamless, and incredibly effective. If you've ever wondered why some salespeople seem to glide right past resistance while others constantly push uphill, pull, cry a little bit, today's conversation is going to give you your answers. And most importantly, it's going to give you a method. So settle in, grab a notebook, because this is one of those conversations you're going to want to revisit. And be sure to visit Ronzoni Books on eBay to order the closers parts 1 and 2, sorry, widely recognized, I can't talk, and you may have to take over, widely recognized globally as the sales Bibles. And each copy arrives signed and dated by Ben, and we strongly recommend having them in front of you each week as you follow along. Good morning, Ben. It's Wednesday.
Well, it is Wednesday. Good morning to you. Been looking forward to this.
Thank you. You're supposed to say that. Do I owe you like $5 a week every time you say that?
7.
Oh.
Inflation, you know.
Yeah. Well, nobody warned me, so I'll have to set up a payment thing with. Do you take green stamps, you know?
I'm old enough to remember green stamps. I used to help my mother lick them and stick them in a book.
I came across some on YouTube the other day and I went, "What?" So that's why that popped into my head. What are we talking when I wanted to say sales infiltration, what strikes me about this concept is that most people are outside of the sale the entire time they're pitching. I've seen it, you've seen it. They're pushing, they're presenting at the prospect. But the sales infiltrator gets inside the prospect's world, their thinking, and their decision making process. So here's my question, Ben. Would you say most salespeople don't even know that this distinction exists? Are they unaware of it, or just never gave it much thought?
If they haven't read the book or that chapter, I suspect they're unaware of it. Good professional sales, Jimmy Rucker, my running buddy, greatest salesperson I ever personally worked with, wasn't aware of it, but it's because of him that I wrote the chapter, because that's what he did. So I'd say there's probably two groups. There's the group who never heard of it, doesn't know, has cut their income in half because of it, etc. And then there's the group who just does it, and they may or may not have a name to go with it. It's just what they do. I've known a lot of those over the years who have just. We live in the little town of Placerville, because a young man then gone now. In Placerville, I did some work for a company he worked with, and his name was John Pearson. He was so nice and smooth, and so when I was doing sales training, but I met him, and you just instinctively liked him. Well, my wife at the time was out. She was my first wife, now gone, um, was a pilot because we had money in an airplane, so why not? And she spent a lot of time flying around with another lady, Ray Robertson, who was a friend of Amelia Earhart. Ray flew bombers to Europe during the war. She didn't drop bombs from them, but she ferried them to the battlefields, to the airfields there. A great lady, and they were always looking for a place to go to have lunch. Well, right
In a
down
plane. I love
the
that.
yeah, right down the road from us is a place called Cameron Park, where we first lived when we moved up here, and it's a fly-in community. There are certain streets, you land in the middle of the street, taxi down to your house, and pull into the hangar, which is generally shares it as a garage with probably your car. So I happened to mention to them, I said, I know a great place for you to go. It's nearby. You'll have a wonderful time, and I'll set it up with John Pearson, a guy I know up there. And that was strictly based on the fact that although I hadn't come up with the term yet and he didn't know what it was, John was a sales infiltrator. Within 5 minutes of knowing him, I knew he would be a friend for the rest of our lives. And we were to the end of his. And so I called John. I said, my wife and her buddy want to come up and fly in and experience it and so on. He said, I will block out the day. I'll show them the whole area. I'll take them to lunch. And so I said, well, that's not necessary. Nope, I insist. So we did. And within a week or so of that trip, John had sold Ray and her husband, Jerry, a home on the runway. And they were pilots and had a plane, so it was a natural thing. And then when I went to start the National Communications Center, I said to my wife at the time, Marcia, I can locate it anywhere. Where do you want to be? And she said, I want to move next to Ray. I'd like to be with her while we're going through the stress of starting another business. My mother at that time said, have you ever thought about getting a job? I said, no, and don't talk to me that way.
No, I am and I'll say it over and over again, I am unemployable. And that's by design.
Yeah. I've told people I just enjoy owning my own businesses. And Gigi, current best 35-year wife, says, and that's because he would be fired by noon if he worked for anybody else.
I think she's being generous there.
Yeah, yeah. To keep him employed anywhere, we have to own our own businesses. But anyway, I said, fine, if you want to be near Ray. So we moved to this area instead of where I wanted to go over on the coast. I wanted to go to a place called the Sea Ranch. But it was her call. So that was 50 years ago. We've raised 3 of our 4 kids here, all because John Pearson was a sales infiltrator. He got inside the family, he got inside me, and it never crossed my mind to be with anybody else. Now, here's a great sales infiltrator for you. I never bought or leased anything from John Pearson. It just didn't work out. Something else was going on. He was gone. I was whatever. But we never did any business together. But I must have helped him sell 50 homes. Because anytime anybody would say to me, who's the best realtor in the area, although I had one I worked with closely, Jan Dallin, my first answer was always John Pearson, sales infiltrator. Never felt any pressure, never felt anything, but he wanted what was best for us, for me and us, and extremely knowledgeable. You just felt comfortable. I coined the term people buy from people they know, like, and trust, and in the last few years added, and with whom they feel safe. That was John Pearson. You felt safe with him. You could send friends to him. You could send relatives to him. It didn't make any difference. If they connected with John Pearson, you knew they would be handled well, decently, professionally, ethically. So that's the long answer to a short question, but those are some of the indicators of a good sales infiltrator. I've told you this before. I remember it happened numerous times, but I remember in one meeting back in the Holiday Magic multi-level marketing days, we were holding a meeting in Atlanta, and we met a new couple with 2 or 3 kids, and we hadn't known them 20 minutes. And they came running up to ask a question. They were at the meeting, but doing their own thing. They came running up and said, Mr. Gay, excuse me, can we ask Uncle Jimmy a question? They're talking about Jimmy Rucker. They hadn't known him
Right.
20 minutes. And it was
And he was an uncle.
yeah, Mr. Gay, may we ask Uncle Jimmy a question? I remember thinking, that's two different reactions. We're two people with the same age. We're both from Atlanta. We both sound alike. How come he's Uncle Jimmy and I'm Mr. Gay? Because Jimmy, he's retired now, was a natural sales infiltrator.
Yeah, but while you're talking, and I'm trying to figure out how to actually say this and make sense, but when you're talking about, your friend who has passed away, I wrote down generosity of heart.
Oh,
And I
that's
don't
good.
think s that you I really don't think that's something that can be taught. You either have it or you don't.
Well, I agree, except that I've learned how to have it because it's not my first instinct. I'm a performer. I should have been in show business, but I have no talent. Uh,
Well, that would slow things down. Well, I don't know. These days, I don't think that's required
right,
anymore.
that's right. Yeah, I think of that when I hear Bob Dylan sing. I think I could do that. I
Oh,
think.
god, I have never been able to understand a word he says.
But it comes to some people naturally. Others have to be cued into it. We were at the post office one day, and there's a guy there named David, and we're dear friends, have been for 25, 30 years. He works behind the counter, and if I don't happen to get him in line, it's just a matter of waving to him. But when we really get together, we talk, and he likes Tabasco sauce that I like. Thank you, by the way, for the set you gave me.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
But it's that the hot mixture with something sriracha, I think is what it's called. He loves that. When I found out about it, I bring him a bottle like once a month and give it to him. That's one of our little things back and forth. And as a result, I get better uh, service at the post office. I can ask him to do things that the others probably wouldn't do. So, again, sales infiltration. He is he doesn't know he's been infiltrated, but where he probably sees 200 or 300 people a day, when I walk in, he yells from the other end of the post office, "Ben, how are you?" And if he doesn't, I yell first, "I'm fine, David. Thank you for asking." It's become a thing. The people in line, uh, generally, people go to the post office tend to go about the same time every day. The 3:30 to 4 crowd, when I'm in town, when I walk in the door, they glance over at David and look back at me. They're waiting for me to say something insulting to him.
It's
And for
not
him,
insulting, it's sardonic.
that's true.
Yeah.
And he fires back, and we have a wonderful kidding time. But that's sales infiltration. I infiltrated the post office. The United States Post Office is nicer to me than the average person. And I even get put on the early truck. Our stuff gets put on the early truck. Just happened the other day. I wrote about one a couple, 3 weeks ago. Guy ordered in Atlanta, we're in Northern California, on a late Friday afternoon, tracking it, the tracking service. He got it Monday morning. Atlanta, from Placerville, California. Got it in essence, since there was a Sunday involved, he got it in less than 2 days. Well, part of that is luck. It got out and got on a fast truck. But the other part of it was they take my orders and move them, walk them to the back and get them on the truck that's about to go out instead of leaving them in the sorting pile
Mhm.
and getting sorted late that day or the next day. And then the other day, we got a 500 book order and a 200 book order, I think it was, on a Friday. They both got them on Monday. And they were both on the other side of the country, not Atlanta, but other side of the country. I know I didn't have to ask. Somebody moved those boxes to the back quickly, and that cost me a bottle of Tabasco sauce a month, roughly, and a little kidding around and being a buddy, being a sales infiltrator. It greases the skids. It makes everything go smoother. It gets you better tables in restaurants. It gets you better service in grocery stores, etc., and gets you treated. You feel important when people treat you that way. Now, what I started to say earlier was with David, that was part of that thing of does it come naturally or do you learn it? I walked up to the window one day. Gigi happened to be with me. David said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm great. How are you?" And he said, "Good." He said, "What'd you do this weekend?" And I told him whatever it was in great detail, probably because I'm a Southerner. And when I finished, it was okay. Now we do business. And Gigi says from slightly behind me, "And what did you do this weekend, David?" And I thought,
Oh, she was schooling you.
yeah, I thought that's an interesting question. Hadn't crossed my mind. We had an exchange. He asked how I was doing. I told him, end of story. Gigi is a sales infiltrator. Everybody loves Gigi. And she said, "And how about you, David?" or whatever. And I made a mental note to get even better at it,
And
become a
she's
better.
not even a Southerner. You should have done that automatically.
Yeah, should have.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's sort of the point. Should have, but I've had to learn it along the way and really become conscious of it. I'm stealing this from Nelson Mandela. I'm a dynamic listener now. I listen to learn. I listen to find out what's important to them, etc. I used to listen to respond. Sales infiltrators listen to learn and do a better job for you. Responders are just waiting for their turn. There have been times in my life when I responded, and if you'd asked me what was the original statement or question, I wouldn't have known because I wasn't listening. I
No
was
clue.
just waiting for a gap so I could jump in with my observations.
And
So,
your
yeah,
brilliance. I mean, look, those of us, and I'm guilty, who think we're the smartest person in the room do that
yep.
until we learn not to do it. And I am the smartest person in the room. I live alone, so I'm not lying.
No, you got cats. So
Well,
you're
yeah, I
the
do.
third smartest person in the room.
That's true. Hamilton, one of my giant gingers, he's very famous online. He is hashtag Hamilton is an ass, and he has earned that name. And we call that in the deep south canai. He's very canny.
Yep. The cats would make uh, probably good sales infiltrators if they understood the reward system.
Oh, they
Uh,
do. They
yeah.
understand. They know what to do, how to get snacks, how to get whatever they want. They get whatever they want. They're worse than 3-year-olds. I wanted to, since we're talking about sales infiltration, let's talk about the really important topic, sales infiltration and podcasting, because you sales infiltrated me, and that's why this podcast exists. And the thing is, I've read them both, but I really have spent more time in the closers part too. And I have read multiple times Sales Infiltration. You still got me.
It doesn't immunize you
It
to
should
sales
have.
infiltrator. Yeah, it shows you how to be one, but the easiest sale to make is to a good salesperson. Even if the salesperson has to help you with your presentation. I'll say to a food shopper guy at the fair, and I got more food shoppers than the food shopper people do, and more Ginsu knives than Ginsu has, because I love to hear a good presentation. And if it's not right, I'll say, "Excuse me, my name is Ben Gay," and da da da, and let me help you with that a little bit. And I say, "You should have said this, and this would work better." And they go, "Well, thank you very much." And I say, "Okay, give me one." So I help them with their presentation, and then I buy. And that's true with sales infiltration. You can be aware of it and therefore appreciate it even more. If uh,
Right.
if John Pearson had been my realtor, that was years ago, but if he'd been my realtor today, knowing the term and having refined it over the years and so on, there was nothing he couldn't have sold me. Nothing. All he had to do was tell me it was good. I'm in. Because his was like the good housekeeping seal of approval. If John said it was good, it was good. John doesn't lie. John doesn't mislead you. John doesn't do what's good for him. He does what's good for you, and he reaps the side benefits. So it's uh, it's crucial, and it comes natural. To Jimmy Rucker, it was natural. To me, I had to study him, study others, and be corrected by Gigi on a regular basis. So slowly but surely, it came naturally. In my morning and evening prayers, one of the sections is I say, Dear Lord, please help me become a better, stronger, kinder person, one filled with the gratitude for all that you do for me, and so on. But kinder, I emphasize it even if I'm not talking out loud, if it's just in my head, better, stronger, kinder person. And kinder would come under the heading of sales infiltration. That doesn't mean weak, doesn't mean wishy-washy. It just means be kind. We had an event at the grocery store moments ago. Gigi and I had to she had to go to the doctor, and there was still enough time to get back in time for this, and she needed to go to the grocery store. I said, let's go in. There's a lady there who'll remain nameless on the remote chance this she hears this someday, but she's a lovely lady, gorgeous face, overweight, which she openly talks about. And I looked at her this morning, and her hair was way prettier than usual. I couldn't tell because it was normally dark brown. I couldn't tell if she had lightened it or highlighted it or what, but it was blondish gray with a little. It's hard to describe for a guy. Trust me, it was good looking. I said, Julie, you're God. I just did it. I used her
You
name.
did. And I'm not cutting it out.
I said, your hair is gorgeous. What have you done? How'd you do the highlights? And she said, I'm lazy. I haven't darkened it. It's just,
Oh,
it's gone gray. I said, stop. Don't ever darken it again.
right.
It's gorgeous. And the real point of that story is I was watching her face while I was talking. It's the we've been dealing with her at the grocery store for 20, 25 years. It was the happiest, uh, genuine smile, mild blush I have ever seen from her. I'm always nice, but
Because
I
you
was,
saw her. You
yeah,
saw something that was probably bothering her or worrying her about it, and you just said, "Keep it up. It's perfect."
yeah. I went to some lady behind us in line. I said, excuse me, ma'am. And she was looking at her phone. She didn't look up. I said, excuse me, I'm talking to you. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, look at Julie's hair. And it's just, if you're from here, you go to that store. And if you're in that store, Julie's is always the longest line because people enjoy talking to her. She's a nice, nice person. She's a sales infiltrator. Well, this morning I infiltrated her. She was glowing and giggling like a little girl
I love
because
that.
someone had stopped and not just said, hey, your hair looks nice. I raved about it. And I said, next time we're in here, it better not be dark again. That's pretty. When I first met, I'd met her before, but when I first took a real interest in Gigi, she was with another friend of ours dyeing her hair, I found out. And I said, why? And said, well, so it doesn't go gray. I said, you worry about that if you do after it's gray. Your hair is gorgeous. So she quit dyeing it. And she said, I like it better. I don't taste it in the back of my mouth. I said, my
Ow.
God, there's another reason you shouldn't be dyeing your hair.
Yeah.
Anyway, we speed forward 30, 35 years now. Her hair is gorgeous, has a few little gray streaks here and there, and I'm praying for more.
Oh,
But well, just because it looks so good,
catches
like
the
like
light,
that
I bet.
politician with the blue with a birthmark. I don't know if you've seen her. I forget what her name is, but she's a high ranking politician. She has a birthmark right up near her front of her hairline, which manifests itself in the color of the hair, not on her skin. So she has this white skin, white hair. It starts at her forehead and swoops down over one ear. When the first few times I saw her, I said, "That's gorgeous, but it looks so phony." Well, it's not phony. It's a birthmark, and she
I
is,
have no idea.
yeah, I forget what her name is. Tulsi Gabbard, maybe.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. That's exactly who it is.
is that who it is?
She's been like that since she was early in the military. It's
Yeah, well,
absolutely
yeah,
natural.
right. Well, she's been like that since she was born. It's a birthmark.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
I went to school with a girl who had the same thing, no mark on her skin, but just a streak of white hair when we were seniors in high school, and again, a birthmark. So anyway, compliment them. Anytime I meet somebody, I try and find, without being caught being insincere, I try, because I've become a sales infiltrator, to find something sincere to say good about them. With Julie today, it was her hair. Normally, it's her personality that we just enjoy going through her life. Here's a big personality example. When we pulled up, we were second, walked up, we were second in her line with a lady who just put a bunch of stuff on the thingamajig, the treadmill, or whatever you call it. And a lady, a cashier next to her, had no one in her line, said, "You come, I can take you over here." And I said, "I hate to be rude, but we prefer to go through Julie's line." And
Oh,
that's because and Julie heard that too. She is a sales infiltrator, although she's a checker in a grocery store, and I promise you never heard the word before. And then as we left, of course, I turned to the second lady and I said, "I don't know why, but Gigi has never liked you." And we walked out of the store.
you
So
did not.
I did, but I know that Julie will be saying, "Oh, that's Ben Gay. And if you're going to
Oh,
work here, you got to get used to it."
it
He said my hair was pretty today, and instead of telling me it looked like a rat's nest.
you reminded me, and, I'm a highly committed introvert. I just don't like to be around people. I like them just fine for 59 and 3/4 minutes. That's all I can handle, and then I have to go home and recover. It wears me out. But years ago, I was in the local Albertsons. I think it must have been around Thanksgiving because that's about the only time I'm willing to go into a store. And there was this lovely little woman in front of me at the checkout line, and she reminded me so much of my mom. And she had on little cropped, capri pants and this beautifully coordinated, kind of pinkish outfit that she was wearing. Her hair was perfect. I suspect she was in her 80s, maybe a little bit older. She was standing up straight. She was lovely, and she had on the cutest little, you know, bedazzled sandals, and I have stilettos. I'm a shoe person, and I stopped her. I said, "I love your shoes," and we got into a big conversation. And then we moved our buggies once we're through paying, we moved our buggies over to the rack of where the other, non-used buggies were. We stood there and we chatted for about an hour. And she's from this part of the country. I'm sure she's gone now. This was a very long time ago. It was a delightful conversation, and I think about her often. And like you said, about Julie, she just lit up.
Yeah,
And I was
you
just
can
as I was just talking about her cute little shoes.
you
So
can make their day. You can make their life. You never know what's going on in somebody else's life, and it's entirely possible you're the first person, if not in her life, in a long time that did that for her.
oh, she was lovely. She was just a beautiful woman and took excellent care of how she, presented herself. I mean, how she showed up in the world. I was madly impressed with her.
There was a lady in the grocery store one day. I'm hitchhiking on your idea. I'm guessing she was in her late 80s, maybe her 90s, but her hair was perfect and she was pretty and trim and all. It was just a combination of things told me this was an older lady. But instead of beautiful shoes and gracious like yours, her T-shirt said in big bold letters, "Admit nothing, deny everything,
I would
attack,
wear that.
attack with false accusations. And I read it and I said, "Can I give you a hug?" She and I hugged. I said, "Gigi, look at this. This is my kind of woman." And so I gave her that, thumb in the ear, finger in front of the mouth, call me sign. I said, "Call me." I haven't seen her since, but I wrote
No.
it down. I've got it here on my computer. Admit
Yeah,
nothing,
admit nothing.
deny everything, attack with false accusations.
Oh, I've got to find that T-shirt. I've got several that I just love, and I've came across one on a hanger the other day and went, "Oh, I didn't know I owned that. That's good. I'm gonna have to wear that." I've got so many of them. Um, let's talk about how you infiltrated me because I did know better, but I didn't catch it. That's how good you are. Because
Well, the way I infiltrated you was I've sort of wanted to do a podcast, but
right.
I'm lazy and my days are full. I didn't have time to figure out how to do one or anything. But I found out over the years that when in doubt, find somebody who's doing what you want done and ask.
Mhm.
It's worked so well for me over the years.
Yeah, but you
So,
didn't ask me directly. You did a roundabout.
what I did was I asked. Here's how I asked. Denise, maybe you can help me with this someday. What I'm really looking for is somebody who already has a podcast, who knows what they're doing, but would like to have I don't know, occasional, once every 6 months or once a week co-host. And then I could bring my sales talent, marketing talent, etc., to the thing and hitchhike on their knowledge and experience and so on. I knew who I was talking to.
I finally figured out, but you did it on LinkedIn. You didn't even talk to me directly. You waited for me to fall straight into that sand trap on LinkedIn,
And
and I
then
did.
you said in so many words, me.
I did. My hand was up in the air, go, "We could do this. I can help." I was so excited. And then I realized very quickly it couldn't be part of your Partner in Success Radio because that's, a different way of podcasting.
Mhm.
So I suggested to you that we do our own every Wednesday. You said, "Okay, thanks, Ben." You didn't.
Sounds
I
good to me.
Yeah. I
I
was
didn't
like,
necessarily have Wednesday in mind, but,
"Well,
I'll
that's
take
the
what I
day
can
I
get.
chose." Right, and I thought afterwards, and I was going back to the closers, I went, "Oh, I have been had." I really have. It's one of the best things that's ever happened to me, so thank you.
And vice versa. But there's a great example of sales infiltration. Get inside the defenses, tell them what's going on, tell them what you'd sort of like to have from somebody somewhere, and let them set the hook in their mouth themselves.
And I
Yeah.
have to tell you, I was at the time, I was doing Mondays and Fridays. That's a lot of work that goes into these things.
Yeah.
I in no way, no how, ain't gonna do a 3rd podcast. And that
Um,
was then, and here we
yeah.
are now. If it had been anybody but you, I wouldn't have even picked up the hint. I would have just, "Good luck, keep on going."
Well, I'm glad you did, and I'm glad that the people over the years who taught me sales infiltration did, because it's made my life so much easier. It's greased the skids and so much. In the books, somebody added them up one day, and guess I've had a hand in written, co-written, edited, published 35 or 36 books. Within those books, and as most of them are on selling, there are hundreds. Somebody told me one time over 300 specific closes I use with an 86% closing rate. 95% of the time, I use the same close. Sales infiltration sets the table. We become friends. I have a good product. My reputation precedes me, etc. And that all sets me up to use the real close I use, which is there are a few words that can change from time to time, person to person, but basically it is okay, based on what we've been discussing, or based on what you told me, either one. Here's what I suggest we do. And then I tell them what we should do. Uh, therefore, I don't have to go, do you want the red one or the blue one? Do you want it Tuesday or Thursday? I'm just finishing up, thanks to Sales Infiltration, the logical conclusion to a nice conversation. I don't use that one, everybody. I don't even close with everybody. There's some people it's just not worth the trouble, or I don't want to have an ongoing relationship with a whiner or whatever the situation is. So part of the 14% dropout, if 86% is what I get, part of the 14% dropout is I dropped out, not necessarily them. I just let it wither and die on the vine because I'm thinking to myself, do I have to talk to this person once a week and listen to this? No, thank you. And so the closing rate probably could be higher, but it's all based on people buy from people they know, like, trust, and feel safe with it. And people say, yeah, but you've been at it so many years. That's easy for you to make friends. I can make a friend in 2 or 3 minutes. I can get them to trust me if you give me 5 minutes. Uh, and no, we know each other. We wouldn't be talking on the phone or dealing with each other over Zoom or what have you. So know, like, trust, and feel safe with can be instantaneous almost. I told you John Pearson, I knew I was going to be doing business with him for the rest of our lives before our first handshake stopped. I have a friend named Richard Burns, retired now, that I worked with at Dry Roof Systems. They do fancy roofing and have a particular product. I assume they're still in business, but he's retired, traveling around the country. I get calls from him. He and Carol have an RV, and get calls from him from here and there, and we chat. But we chat no more closely as friends than the first day I met him. I said in a seminar I did for them, somewhere in this room, there's somebody, maybe more than one, who I'm going to be friends. I was just hired for the day, but there's somebody here I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life. And at the first break, Dick Burns came up, took my hand, and said, "It's me." And I said, "It's you what?" He said, "You said there's somebody in here who's going to be friends with
I'm
you
the
for the
friend.
rest of
It's
you."
me.
Yeah, and he said, "It's me." I said, "All right. I don't have to look for the other guy all day long." He said, "No, it's me." And sure enough, it has been. He's just a good guy who radiates kindness and goodness and so on. And what he's selling at any given time is almost an afterthought. That isn't the issue. If I don't need it, he wouldn't sell it to me anyway. If I don't need it, I wouldn't try and buy it. But if it's something that I need or want and he has it, all he has to say is, get this one. Because the elements of selling, sometimes people make it so complicated. Somebody years ago wrote down the 3 steps to selling. I'd like to give him or her credit, but I don't remember who. It was so old in my mind, I don't remember who said it, but it was, here's what I have to offer, step 1. Step 2, here's what it will do for you or what's in it for you. And 3, here's what I want you to do now. Now, that may take 45 minutes, it might take a day, but when the dust settles, those are the 3 things you covered because you were selling a quality product that's competitively priced, and you were selling it to a qualified person. So one of the hardest things about being a good sales trainer is taking 5 or 10 minutes of information and stretching it over 3 days. Because if people really got what I just said to you just now, really got that, maybe with a few follow-up questions, you could don't do the closers, but you could take all the other sales books and throw them in the trash. Because when you boil it down, the good ones, that's what we all say. Zig Ziglar wrote, I don't know how many books he wrote while he was alive, but he wrote a lot of them. He was really good. He worked for me. We joined Holiday Magic Cosmetics in the same meeting on the same day in Atlanta, Georgia, Wednesday, September 15th, 1965 at noon. And he could talk for hours, days about how to be a good salesman. But I just told you, boiled down exactly what he said over those days, hours, or whatever. It's so simple. But salesmen get bound up, salespeople get bound up in selling inferior products that are overpriced, and therefore they need to be tricky about selling them. I, I think I've told you this before. The next series of books I write, instead of being the closers, is going to be something like the openers, because that's where I make most of my sales, in the first 5 to 10 minutes. The I used to talk. I forget even where I stuck it, but I used to talk about when you walk up to somebody's door. If I was training uh, door-to-door salespeople or solicitors, I'd say, understand, when you walk up to the door and they open it, they probably saw you coming and watched you walking up the sidewalk. But when you first encounter each other, they run their little computer-like brain over everyone they've ever met who walk that way, talk that way, dress that way, comb their hair that way, everything. And before you open your mouth, 80 to 90% of their opinion of you has been made, good or bad. Now, you can overcome a bad start, but try not to get in that hole to start with. Why do you have to overcome a bad start? Don't make a bad start. Don't overdress or underdress. Don't dress shabbily unless you're selling cleaning leaf gutters of the leaves or something like that. That might be a good idea to throw some leaves in your face right before you knock on the door. But short of that, dress appropriately, walk appropriately. Don't spit on their sidewalk as you're approaching the door,
Yeah,
because
we've talked
probably,
about that.
yeah, a guy in particular, I know his name,
Mm.
uh, has lost thousands of dollars in business with me over the years, and he's probably still trying to figure out why. It's because he got out of his car and spit on our sidewalk driveway as he approached the door. And
I had something
yeah,
similar when I still had a brick and mortar business. And I was looking out the window and they were salespeople, you could tell. They were wanting to sell me diamonds or sapphire. They wanted to sell me something because I was a jeweler at the time. And they very calmly, very casually got out of their cars, both doors opened, and all of a sudden chicken drumsticks start hitting the ground. They started dumping their food that they ate in their car. And some of it was in a bag, some of it wasn't. And I met them at the door and I said, hang on a second, don't go in there. And they couldn't figure out why. And I walked them back to their car. I said, pick it up.
yep,
And they said, what? I said, pick it up. If you don't, I'm going to call the police because you're littering on my property. Pick it up. And they did. I must have scared them, but they picked it up.
scare me.
Yeah, I don't play. You're not going to trash my area. You're just not. They didn't come in, by the way.
No, they didn't feel it would be all warm and fuzzy in there.
I don't think they thought they were safe, and they weren't. So,
Well, that's
I
reverse sales infiltration, but it's exactly what I'm talking about. That's how
exactly.
quick it can happen. John Pearson shakes your hands, looks you dead in the eyes, and gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. It was like being wrapped in a blanket. And that was over 50 years ago, and I feel like it happened this morning. Uh, and there's that, or you can spit in the driveway.
Yeah,
In either case, they're trying to figure out all sorts of tricky closes. John Pearson didn't need any, and the people who spit in the driveway, there is no close on earth that would ever get me to give you a dime.
exactly. And I don't know if and there are a lot of little jewelry stores in the town. And I'm sure they went to all of them and said, she's mean. And probably one or two of them said, yep,
Yeah, tell me
don't,
about it.
don't mess with her. But I say, just, but I've never forgotten. That was a long time ago and I'm not over it yet. And, the Deep South, we can hold a grudge forever. So don't come back.
Absolutely. And that can be as quick as, a little encounter over a counter of goods. It can be in a county fair. One of my favorite places to go is food, the Gadget Row. I just love that, to watch the various presentations. And like I said, I got tons of Ginsu knives to prove it. I probably have, if I have 25 Ginsu knives, it's because I've been to the county fair here 25 times.
I've
I
never
can't,
owned one.
no,
Yeah, are they any good?
they're really good. They're serrated knives. It's not a
Right.
big deal, but it's serrated, so it cuts better than a flat blade or whatever you call that.
I have
And
a serrated knife that I use to cut tomatoes with. It just does a better job than a flat blade.
there you go. And that's what a Ginsu knife does. And I guess it's tough. I haven't seen a commercial in a while, but when they were ever, it can cut through things you wouldn't ever cut through with a knife, but it does somehow. But mainly what the Ginsu knife has is everybody says the same thing. They've worked out an excellent presentation, reasonably priced. The last one I bought was 1995, and I think that's what they were the first time I bought one. And knowing a little bit about manufacturing, they probably have $2 in it, made in China or someplace. And but it's a wonderful product. But mainly, it's a wonderful sales presentation. But a good sales infiltrator. John Pearson could sell Ginsu knives and never tell you anything about them. Just, hi, I'm John Pearson. I really believe in this best knife I've ever used. Want one? and, you'd go, yeah, I'll take one.
Well, when he's that clear about it, you can't argue. I get it, though. I've seen people do that. And it does
Uh,
make sense. You trust them,
yeah,
even if you don't really know them, but you just think, "Okay, if he really believes that firmly in it, I'll give it a shot."
sure, I'm in. The Good Housekeeping seal of approval. My mother, I assume the magazine is still printed, but my mother and her era of people would not buy anything that didn't have the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. They didn't need a sales presentation. They just need to see that, everybody knows what a blouse is or a this is or a knife is. And so they would glance down to the bottom of the page looking for the gold seal. If it was there, they bought. Well, you can, as a sales infiltrator, you can be your own Good Housekeeping seal of approval, and you carry it with you everywhere you go. And if I, it's like the National Association of Professional Salespeople, the seal of approval that we give to certain people, like to you,
I
for
have
your
it.
for
I
your
do.
yeah for your edition of the closers. That's, you don't have to say anything. Most people sort of know where that came from. That saying, Ben Gay and 18 million salespeople around the country and more around the world say this is okay and it's guaranteed. So it saves a whole lot of talking and jiving and so on to sell something. So the trick is to become part of sales infiltration. Become your own seal of approval. When you get through explaining a product or service, say, and I personally recommend and guarantee it. We may have discussed this the other day. I discussed it with somebody. When somebody says, well, a lot of people make products similar to this. What's different about this product? Oh, this is absolutely unique because with this gizmo, you get me. You get Ben Gay. You get my private cell phone number. You are entitled to call me if you have a problem. You don't have to figure out, was it the manufacturer? Was it the salesperson? Was it this? Was it that? You call me and I'll get it handled. That's the only thing you have to do. Ben, got a problem.
Back it up. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and
So that's what
you're
it does.
talking about the Good Housekeeping seal, and I'm a royal watcher, although recently I'm wondering if they're all not a little bit bat crap crazy. But, they have what they call the royal warrant, and if that thing is above a shop, it's the queen or the king or somebody approved that.
Hmm. Same thing. And if they ever mess up, the seal goes
Goes
away, and
down.
and you have all sorts of problems. And a question or a statement that was asked to be expanded on, friend of ours, Irvin Ray, haven't heard from him in years, but he said, he went to one of my seminar series years ago. He said, "You did that step thing. I think you called it grandfathering. Would you explain that?" So I'll run through it quickly. We sold a package of products and services as a division of the National Communication Center, the answering service, order taking service. It was called National Toll-Free Marketing. And to get the goods at the lowest possible price, the cosmetics, the sign-up forms for the answering service, and all sorts of other services and products, to get the maximum discount locked in was, I'm quoting from memory, I think it was $24,316.75. What it really was $75,000 at retail with a 65% discount. So you can do your own math, but I think that was about right, a little over $24,000. So here's the step process, and it worked miraculously well. You went to a weekend seminar. That was $250, and you got sales training and so on. When that session was over, we upsold you, told you about the big package, the $24,000 package, but we upsold you to the minimum another seminar in more depth, $5,000. But the good news was the $250 you already paid counted towards the 5,000. So you didn't have to come up with another 250. You just had to come up with 5,000, and you went to the bigger, deeper, better seminar. And most people who went did. They didn't want to lose the 250 and so on. So they came, and it was a wonderful program. And then at the end of that, we told you about the 24,000 again, but we also told you about a week-long seminar. It cost $10,000 to go to it. But the good news was the 250 you already spent at the first seminar, the $5,000 you spent at the second one came off of the 10,000. So the $10,000 seminar was about 5,000. Unless you didn't go forward, in which case we appreciate you coming to the others. You're not going to the next one. That's good. And you've not lost, but you're not going to get any additional benefit out of the first two seminars you went to. So most people, the survivors from the first step, went to the $10,000 step. And that was a 10-day class. And at the end of that, guess what? You discovered that if you wanted to go to the $24,000 package, which we highly recommended, we would take all tuitions you paid up until that time, whether it was $250, $5,000, $15,000, whatever you'd already paid, it all went to the $24,000 package.
But that
So
seems fair.
go ahead.
That's fair. I mean,
Well, of
that would
course it's
be
fair, but
that
you
would
don't
be
have to
very
sell.
attractive, but it's also fair.
Yeah, because you're not losing. But the psychological impact was if I don't go forward, I lose the 10,000, the 5,000, the 250, whatever it was that you've already put in. You lose that. You got the knowledge. You may go make $1 million with that knowledge, but you don't get any products and services to resell at a 65% discount. That's only at the $24,000 level. But if you're sitting in that third class, you don't have 24,000 to go. You have 24,000 minus either 10, 5, or 250. And most at that point had 10. So they were either going to, and I say lose, but you didn't lose it because you got what you paid for. But the attitude psychologically was, I'm going to lose the 10,000 I've already put in if I don't just take this last little step, lock in my discount, and get $75,000 worth of merchandise and services to resell. So
Mhm.
the worst that's going to happen if I work is I'm going to triple my money, uh, or I can just say, well, this was wonderful. and lose thousands of dollars in past tuitions.
And
So,
potential, upcoming income.
right. So, and some of those people still buy from me, different company, but we sell the closers still. And so there's, and my consulting services and coaching services. So there's some people 30 years later who have continued to use or are using that initial investment because I grandfathered it in. I'm not going to say, well, that was Ben Gay yesterday. Ben Gay,
Mhm.
Ben Gay today doesn't honor that. So
Oh,
I grandfathered it in. So if you're selling something that's a pretty good size, it'll work with anything. But if you're selling something that's a pretty good size ticket and you can break it down into steps, do it where they keep what they've already invested if they go forward. If they don't go forward, they got exactly what they paid for, no bonuses. So that was how Irvin Ray became a general distributor at National Toll Free Marketing. He put up $250, which he said was an attention getter because he didn't generally pay $250 to go hear somebody talk. But a month later, 6 weeks later, he put up $24,316.75 to stay in the cycle. So grandfather your projects if you can. And I'd highly recommend it.
got it. We haven't talked about that before. I'm going to have to go into the transcript and highlight that. Listen, we are out of time.
Yes,
For we do this every week. For our audience, sales infiltration is such an important topic that we're going to continue it next week, and honestly, for as long as we need to make sure that you walk away with insights that are not only helpful, but also easy to understand and put, into action in your sales. And by the way, this episode of the Closers Inner Circle podcast with your hosts, Denise Griffitts and Bengay III, is brought to you by the Your Partner in Success Radio Preferred Partner Program. This podcast is hosted by my other podcast, Your Partner in Success Radio. So if you're going to get your message out in front of the audience, the right audience consistently, this partner program is the easiest and most effective way to do it. Why? Because we are heard literally all over the globe. We're in the top 1.5% of the most popular podcasts in the world, and it's 18 years old. People listen to us. So just like we're talking about sales infiltration today, strategically getting in front of the people who mattered, the Preferred Partner Program puts you exactly where your ideal clients and fans are listening week after week. We ask you to provide 3 to 4 key points that you want your audience to know about: books, services, consultations, whatever it is that you're offering to a very large audience. And we share those in my voice, which is very well known, as you can imagine, with calls to action that guide people exactly where you want them to go. It's professional, very affordable, and I'm stressing very affordable, and designed to help you get seen without guesswork. So if you want to know more and secure your spot, go to yourpartnerandsuccessradio.com and go to the Partner with Us tab. Be where your audience already is. It's just like infiltrating the right conversation at the right time. So Ben, you're good with continuing this conversation next week?
absolutely.
I'm asking like you really have the right to say yes or no, but yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll do that.
there you go. Like, I remember the last year or two ago, we talked about this particular chapter, and we went pretty deep into it, but this time I want to do it in a structured way. So stay with us and we'll teach you everything you need to know about sales infiltration. Ben, thank you. I will see you next Wednesday.
Looking forward to it. You have a wonderful day.
I'm gonna talk to you later.